لكن تحديت الظروف وخضتها وحدي صبورا مستعينا بالصلاة. كم مرة عصف الأنين بداخلي، كم مرة قد ذاق قلبي من أسى محن تمر، وكم كرهت مصابها.
Our setup right now, sisters and brothers like this. My teachers and Mufti's teachers will kick us out of mainstream Islam because of this setup. Mufti is turning red. Sorry. I'm just calling facts, guys, really. I'm just telling it as it is. My teachers of my strand of Islam and his teachers from his strand of Islam do not accept. But I disagree and I accept. I don't have a problem. If I did, I wouldn't be here. I don't have a problem. This is the world we live in. And I find it, the Sharia allows for this type of organic separation. What I would not like is obviously complete integration. I wouldn't want that in a masjid. If I'm teaching on campus, it's beyond my control. As a professor in a college campus, that's not something. But if I'm in control and it's my masjid and my conference and my audience, then the bare minimum is exactly as we're doing now. There should be right and left, brothers and sisters on one side, no problem. Has the Sharia come with logistical diagrams of how brothers and sisters should sit? Huh, guys? No. My teachers and his teachers are accustomed in totally different areas of the world, but still, they're accustomed to a certain mechanism of gender interactions. I am not making fun of those interactions. I am not demeaning. I am not saying that's wrong. All I'm saying, that's not universal. That's not universal. Now we have in our midst some youth who would come and find this problematic. They're going to write refutations against Mufti Saab. To me, I have bigger refutations I have to worry about, but Mufti Saab is going to get kicked off. How dare he allow sisters inside the Musalla area? Because they have found their teachers not allowing it. There's no Quran, there's no hadith that prohibits it. On the contrary, we can find plenty of hadith that allow it. Actually, if you want it to be technical, no problem in doing this. But still, it is what it is. So, gender interactions and gender roles, the Sharia has not come with a long list of definitive do's and don'ts. There's some really basic doctrines, and the rest, you can fill in the blanks, culture specific. So, just because in our culture we are more gender egalitarian, I'm being very clear here, that is not inherently un-Islamic. Do you understand? Brothers in particular. Brothers in particular. Sisters as well. Now it's your turn. Sisters, where our culture conflicts with the Quran or with the established Sunnah, we have to reject our culture and accept the Quran and established Sunnah.
That's the Qadi. In the masjid. We're going to get into how the Prophet ﷺ separated the men and women for the salat, and how he waited for the women to go, leave, and then the men stayed in their places. And even to the point when the men went out, he goes to the women, go close to the walls. Don't mix in the streets where you can't control it. But Yasir Qadi puts them right in front in the mosque and just has like no barriers, no nothing, and men and women right next to each other in the mosques. To add on top of that, as you can see, we've got Al-Fatawa Al-Kubra Al-Fiqhiyya by Ibn Hajar Al-Haythami, and he goes into it in detail. So Shafi'i, we've gone from Maliki, now we go to Shafi'i. To show these liberal simps that we've got the correct Islamic position. They're just following on from this Western secularized, standard, and they're trying to give it Islamic, legitimacy and permissibility. Hajar al-Haythami mentions, okay, and pay attention. It says regarding the munkaratul masajid. Okay, we're going to get into Yasir Qadi's video in a bit. Munkaratul masajid, and it says, قال ولو كان الوعظ شابا متزين الكثير الأشعار والحركات والإشارات وقد حضر المجلسه النساء وجب المنع فإن فساده أكثر من صلاحه. Listen, he said a male preacher, listen, who is beautified for women in his clothes and his appearances and his motions and gestures. Listen to that, subhanAllah. And women attend his gathering. It's an evil that must be stopped. what you see in these conferences, men and women, I mean, men, moving around and harakat and movement and whatnot, gestures and laughing and joking, it's an evil that must be stopped. Because the evil from him is greater than his virtue. Okay? And what does he say? Subhanallah al-Azim. He continues, Ibn Hajar al-Haythami. He mentions, بل لا ينبغي أن يسلم الوعظ إلا لمن ظاهره الورع وهيته السكينة والوقار وزينه زي الصالحين. He mentions that this is clear that the preaching should be the one that has, who is God-fearing and has like a dignified manner, and his clothing is the clothing of the pious. What does he say? And without this, وَإِلَّا فَلَا يَزْدَادُ النَّاسُ بِهِ إِلَّا تَمَادِيًا فِي الضَّلَالِ. That without this, it is what? The misguidance will continue. And what does he mention where the arrow is over? He says, فَيَجِبُ أَنْ يُضْرِبَ بَيْنَ الرِّجَالَ وَالنِّسَاءِ هَائِلٌ يَمْنَعُ مِنَ النَّظْرِ. Subhanallah al-Azim, pay attention, bitter truth, and all of these, Nu'man Ali Khan, Yasir Qadis, and Sheikh Hassan Ali, that what? It is obligatory, yajibu, it is obligatory to place a barrier between men and women to prevent them from looking at each other. Because why? Why is this, O Ibn Hajar al-Haythami? فَإِنَّهُ مَذِينَةُ الْفَسَادِ ويجب المنع النساء من حضور المساجد للصلاة وللمجالس الذكر. Wallah, look at that. It is what? It is impermissible, okay, for the women to attend the mosques and the majalis of dhikr. Wallah al-Azim, the majalis of dhikr, the remembrance. It is prohibited to, it is obligatory to what? To stop them from attending. That's what Ibn Hajar al-Haythami says. And even to add on top of that, Ibn Hajar al-Haythami literally copied Imam al-Ghazali in Ihya Ulum al-Din, and practically the same thing. Practically what? The same thing. So, come back to me now. Subhanallah al-Azim. We've got the book Kitab al-Mabsut, okay, by As-Sarakhsi. And what does he mention? Now he's talking about like the judges. He was a Hanafi alim. Was thrown in prison. It's a very, very interesting story. He mentions that Sarakhsi said, وَيَنْبَغِي لِلْقَاضِ أَنْ يُقَدِّمَ النِّسَاءَ عَلَى حِدَةٍ وَالرِّجَالَ عَلَى حِدَةٍ. So it is imperative that the women, as the Qadi, presents the women on their own and the men on their own. لأن الناس يزدحمون في مجلسه. That because the people start to get congested in his majlis. وفي اختلاط النساء مع الرجال عند الزحمة من الفتنة والقبح ما لا يخفى. والله العظيم, bitter truth, take note of this. So this is talking about the courthouse, that the Qadi should separate men and women. The women should come on their own. Obviously, if they got, on their own, they should have a mahram. That's the standard before you start. So, what about this? And the men should come on their own. Because they'll start congregating and having congestion in his majlis, and free mixing or mixing with women with men in the, zahma, in the congested period, is a source of fitna and is vile, and is not hidden from him. As you saw Yasir Qadi, where he was just had the women in chairs next to him, and the men, next to the women, and etc. etc. The Prophet ﷺ said that the best rows for men are the first rows, and the worst are the last. And the best rows for the women are the first rows, and the worst are the last, as you can see on screen. So we got Sahih Muslim. So as you can see, it mentions that Abi Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم خير صفوف الرجال أولها وشرها آخرها وخير صفوف النساء آخرها وشرها أولها. That the reason why is because that the men should not mix with the women, okay, and they shouldn't see them, okay, they shouldn't see them and shouldn't see their movements and shouldn't listen to their speech, etc. etc. So Imam Nawawi is basically showing you that this shouldn't happen the way Yasir Qadi is presenting it. They shouldn't see them, shouldn't hear their speech. So when you're right next to them, you can see them, and as I said before, the Prophet ﷺ when obviously he mentions that the women left first and he waited. I presented that in my previous video. So as you can see on screen, we got Nail al-Awtar by Imam Shawkani, and he mentions under this hadith as well that basically that the purpose of it is that they do not mix with the men. To stop them mixing with the men. There's no mixing with the men.
ليس الغريب غريب الشام واليمن إن الغريب غريب اللحد والكفن إن الغريب له حق لغربته على المقيمين في الأوطان والسكن سفر بعيد وزاد لن يبلغني وقوتي ضعفت والموت يطلبني ما أحلم الله عني حيث أمهلني وقد تماديت في ذنبي ويسترني تمر ساعة